Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Please reach out to me directly for pricing. I am tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Today we're discussing a watch that pays homage to the earliest days of the Omega Seamaster 300 diver from the late 1950s, 1957 being year one, starting with the CK2913. Omega took its Seamaster water-resistant watch line into the world of the professional and amateur diver. And whereas the Seamaster previously had been sold more as an all-arounder with competent water resistance, in 1957, the true dive watch Seamaster, the Seamaster we know today, arrived. This model, the Seamaster 300, arrived in 2014 as an homage to those early Seamaster 300 references. So it's larger, no doubt, 41 millimeters in diameter in stainless steel. It's 14.9 millimeters thick, and from lug tip to lug tip, 48 millimeters with a modern 21 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Proportionally, it's a good match for the original, even if dimensionally it's quite a bit larger. On my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, it's got nice presence. The best shot is down the barrel, where you can see how much clearance I have on each side of my wrist. Plenty that I could recommend this watch for a wrist as small as 15 centimeters circumference, maybe even 14 if your wrist is flat across the top and oval in profile like mine. Here's your over-the-top shot. Quick note, this always exaggerates the width of the watch. It's a lot narrower side to side than this makes it look. And then the cuff shot, where you can see most sleeves, all jackets, and all but the tightest of dress shirt sleeves. The strap is designed more for vintage ambiance than diving. If you're going to go in the water, you want to put it on a water-resistant strap. There are many Omega OEM options as well as aftermarket in the 21 millimeter size. We have a lovely light brown. We have a bit of bolstering adjacent to the lugs, so stuffing in other words. We've got an off-white contrasting stitch that nicely matches the ecru Fotina of the dial. We have a folded edge, and then on the bottom, calfskin, and you can see no crimping, no gouging. This is an Omega factory strap, and this is an Omega factory clasp. This has been around since the early 2000s, but it's continued because it's a wonderful piece. First, differential finish externally, both satin and polish, setting it apart. And then we have twin trigger release, so it's not enough to press one. You have to press both to release this. So for active lifestyles, this is going to stay put. Now, there's another feature I like, which is that the strap tucks in. You can see there are these two little lobes on each side. So you put the strap through just like this, you tuck it into the lobes, and then you pin it on the pin. And then the excess length of the strap, once you've sized it, it goes under the clasp, it goes under the strap. There's no need for minder loops. Remember, these are minder loops. This doesn't need those. It's a very clean look. No minder loops, no excess length flapping in the breeze. Now, this is not the lyre-style lug case we know well from so many Seamasters and Speedmasters. That design came about in the early 60s, whereas this is an homage to the late 50s. So we get squared-off lugs, a narrow case band, a very minimal beveling on the edge of the lugs. The bevel in the tops and the ends are polished. The mid case is longitudinally satinated. We have a no-guard profile for the crown, an Omega logo on the crown, a nice sharp knurling. You can see that the outer face of the knurling is polished, and then inboard there is a little bit of satination. If you look carefully, you can even see that there's a little bit of a bevel to the edge of the knurling to add some refinement visually and to the touch. We also have a ceramic bezel insert, which is not true to history, but it does give you more durability than the original anodized piece that would have been equipped in the 50s, so it won't scratch. The metal that you see is bonded to the ceramic, so the indices and the numerals that can never separate out. Let's hear the ratchet. It's a fairly fine feeling, though slightly gritty, 120 click action. You can see there's what's called a chimney inboard. So you have this polished ring between the bezel and the crystal. That's to protect the crystal from any knock that might be rendered against the bezel, to prevent it from transferring directly to the crystal, as well as to protect the crystal from abrasion against the ever-rotating unidirectional diving bezel. Now, the Spectre version of this watch does feature a bidirectional bezel, but this one has a classical unidirectional bezel, so you can use it as a timing instrument to count up to 60. It can't accidentally extend your dive. It can only shorten your dive by accident. And again, ceramic, very scratch resistant. We have what Panerai would call a sandwich dial. It's a stencil that features indices on top of a loomed base. So you have these little recesses in which the simulated patina sits. We have the same treatment at center, where we have the ecru filling within the hands, and you might be lulled into believing that this somewhat dull, dark luminova would not be particularly vivid at night and might compromise the sporting integrity of the watch. You can see that's not the case. It is quite bright, and we have all three hands loomed, so you're able to see that this diver is running in the dark, and that's important for a diver. You can also see that the bezel pearl and the minute hand are green, whereas the rest of the dial is blue, making it easy to read the one against the other at a glance when low light or no light conditions obtain. We have historically inspired Dauphine minute and broad hour. So the broad arrow hour has a special feature. Let me unscrew this crown here. By the way, still 300 meters water resistant. I can move that broad arrow, and I can do it without stopping the watch or displacing the minute hand. So if I'm traveling around the world jumping time zones, I can maintain my time to the second, and then I can move my hour hand as needed. Now, if I pull the crown out all the way, I do have hacking seconds. The watch does have that capability. We've got the vintage quarter Arabic numerals printed on the dial. Polished hands at center, with the exception of a white varnished seconds hand, and a matte dial base designed to give it a vintage look. Flip it all over. We have caliber 8400, which is the no-date version of the 8500. It is a COSC chronometer. This was not, at the time it was launched, a master chronometer, a METAS certification. This is a COSC certification. Bidirectional winding, twin barrels in series, a very even torque release due to phased mainsprings, so it doesn't run super fast when highly wound, nor does it lose a lot of time after 18, 24, 36, 48 hours. 60 hours total power reserve, and with the twin barrels, a very even, consistent timekeeping. So 60 hours of reserve, bidirectional automatic winding. It's got the time zone hour hand, the hacking seconds. It's braced against shock with a full dual anchored balance bridge and a free sprung balance. All the adjustment done using variable inertia bolts on the balance rim itself. Anti-magnetic with a silicone hairspring, sufficient to resist almost all magnetic fields. As you can see, over 15,000 Gauss, effectively making this watch amagnetic. Yes, I know 300 meters is not 1,000 feet. Just press the I believe button. You have the tri-level co-axial, which is a double impulse, direct and indirect impulse tangential contact system designed by George Daniels of Britain, and he first created it in 1974. It wasn't until the 90s that he found a mainstream taker for his design. Jean-Claude Biver at Omega said, well, you know what? This is a great idea that will set us apart from Rolex. They started industrializing it. They brought it to market in 1999, and they slowly perfected it, eventually coming out with the 8500 series in 2007, which is where this design comes from, and it is capable of improving chronometry, power reserve, as well as reducing the need for maintenance in between service and improving performance in between services. So this tri-level coaxial really achieving everything Daniels had in mind for the system. Also important, it is fundamentally different from a conventional Swiss lever, which is this definitely is not, in that the contact between the impulsing and impulsed surface is via tangential impulse, whereas on a Swiss lever, you have constant sliding, which soaks up quite a bit of energy and creates undue friction. 5-position adjustment, 38 pivot joules, and a quirky beat rate of 25,200 vibrations per hour, which is specific to the silicone hairspring. And you'll actually see that across Swatch Group brands that are using this type of silicone hairspring. So a very, very cool watch. And again, a COSC certified Swiss chronometer. Lots to love here. Vintage vibes, modern fit finish assembly, and this is the rare vintage style watch that can actually go diving. I wouldn't do it with a 50 Seamaster. I would do it with this. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.